Okay, so in the last lesson, right, I have introduced to you the equation of a circle in the standard form. Regarding the general form, I suggested to you to actually expand and then compare coefficient, and that was where we stopped last lesson. Okay, I went back and then I started to think about it. Okay, then I realized that actually for the general form there's another way of doing, which is to do by completing the square. Okay, because I know that some of you're completing a square is still a bit shaky, so I don't suggest you to do that lah. Okay, I'll leave it as an independent skill itself. Alright, in terms of completing the square. So we just do expansion, which I trust that all of you can do it very well. Alright. Now let's look at try 3. The last lesson we only did part A. So let's take a look at part B today. Okay, so we are given a general form equation, x squared plus y squared minus 10y plus 9 equals to 0. Right? Something that we need to make sure of whenever we handle a general form equation is that the right hand side is always equals to 0 first. Okay? And then after the x squared plus y squared has a coefficient of 1. Okay, so in this case, we want to find out what is the center and also the radius of the circle. Alright, so what I suggested to you in the last lesson was to let AB be center of circle and radius be R units. Okay, then after that, we just write down the standard form. And then expand. Okay. In your expansion and your rearrangement, we group it in this manner. Okay, so in decreasing powers of the variable x and y. Alright, so power 2, power 1, and then none of that. Constant terms. Okay, then we compare. Okay, so by comparison, right? Notice that we do not have a term that is having a x in it, okay, x variable, right? So we don't have the 2ax part, right? So what does that mean? It just means that the coefficient 2a in this given equation is equals to 0. So negative 2a equals to 0. Okay? Because it can be seen as though there is a minus 0x or plus 0x. Right? Then after that, we also say that negative 2b equals to negative 10. And a squared plus b squared minus r squared equals to 9. Yes, Bobby. Sorry? Can you do completing the square? You can, just like I said it. Yeah. You can do completing the square if you want to. Because what? Yeah, you can do that, but I will not want to encourage it in my class. Yeah. If you can do that, then so go ahead and do it. Yeah. Okay. I won't do the completing the square because I don't want you to confuse yourself, because you're doing 2 completing the squares concurrently. Right? And I'm not very certain whether all of you are very strong in your completing the square or not already. Okay? So then after that, we see that A is equals to 0, B is equals to 5, and we find that the center is at 0.5 and the radius is 4 units. Any questions? No questions, I'd like you to give exercise 8.1 question 2A a try. Okay, that is on your textbook page 206. Right, same thing, find the radius and the coordinates of the center. Give you about 5 minutes. Are we all done? Anybody still not done yet? Okay, just a reminder in terms of your presentation, okay, I hope that you're able to get the center to be a -1.5 and then the radius at 5 units. Okay, please make sure that you write down the coordinates, so remember to do that. And then after that, when it comes to the radius, okay, it is 5 units. Alright, so make sure that you write the word units, because the word units is a unit itself that's important, okay, to be written. Alright, any questions? Okay, if no questions, let's look at slightly more challenging questions now. Alright, so let's take a look at try 4. So in try 4, the first thing that we are told is that there's a circle that passes through A and B. Okay, that means the points A and B lies on the circle itself, or rather the circumference of the circle. Okay, in part I, they want you to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector. So finding equation of perpendicular bisector is something that we covered last year when doing our coordinate geometry topic. Right? Can someone tell me what do we need to find first? Let's do a quick recap. What must we find first in determining the equation of perpendicular bisector? Alia? Sorry? Midpoint, and you're saying? Midpoint, but there's also another thing, right? Gradient, okay? So we need to find the midpoint and then also the gradient of the perpendicular bisector. Alright, so to find out what is the midpoint, we have a formula for it. So midpoint of AB will be 2 plus -6 divided by 2, y coordinate plus y coordinate divided by 2. Okay? That would give us -2, 3. Okay? And then we need to find the gradient. But we find the gradient of AB first. And not the perpendicular bisector yet. So we get -½ Okay. In case you can't understand why we're doing this, you need a pictorial representation. So we are looking at the points A, B. We want to find perpendicular bisector. Perpendicular bisector refers to this. Okay. So after we find the gradient of AB, then we can find the gradient of the perpendicular bisector. And what would that be, Anson? What would the gradient of the perpendicular bisector be? Or would you want to do it in another way? Or you're not sure? Sorry? 1 equals the gradient. Yes, -1 over the gradient. Okay, so if you remember, perpendicular lines. So if L1 and L2 are perpendicular, okay, taking M1 and M2 to be the gradients of the perpendicular lines, okay, the product of it will be -1. So that means that the perpendicular line's gradient is negative 1 over the other line's gradient. Okay, so it's a negative reciprocal. So what we can do instead of going through so many steps, okay, is that you negative this number, so negative negative become positive, right? And then reciprocal means that we flip the fraction, right? So we get 2 for the gradient of the perpendicular bisector. Okay. Okay, then after that, now that we got the gradient and we got the midpoint already, we can figure out the equation of the perpendicular bisector. So equation of perpendicular bisector is, I don't use the equal sign. So y minus away the midpoint equals to gradient times x minus away x coordinate of midpoint. In case you don't recall how I got this, it is because last year we covered that we can get equation from having this formula. Okay? Any questions? Alright, now that we have found the equation of the perpendicular bisector already, which is y equals 2x plus 7, okay, in part 2 we want to find the coordinates of the center C. Okay, so this is the more challenging one, okay, where you need to be able to interpret what is it that you have and then maybe draw a circle to visualize the entire context of the question. Okay, so let's put the initial parts of the question onto a circle now. Okay, so we are looking at having a circle where A and B lies on it. So let me draw one circle. Okay. If you want it to be accurate, you can by all means draw it. Okay. But for me, this is just a sketch. I'm not particular about this. Okay. As long as you can understand and know what to do after that, then that's fine. Okay. So let's say A and B is like that. Okay. Technically, B should be here, A should be here. Okay. I'm not sure. Never mind. Alright. So let's say it is like this. Okay. We have the chord AB. What we have already found is that there is a perpendicular bisector. So the perpendicular bisector, we found the midpoint. And then after that, oops, the perpendicular bisector looks something like this. Right? And this perpendicular bisector has the equation y equals to 2x plus 7. Okay? Then after that, in part 2, the information they have provided to you is that there is a center C of the circle. Okay? And then after that, this C itself, alright, lies on the line 5x plus y equals to 0. So maybe 5x plus y equals to 0 may look something like this. Okay? I want you to notice that when I place the point C, the center, I actually placed it on the perpendicular bisector. Okay? Are you actually very confident that the center C is on the perpendicular bisector or not? Alright? So if you recall last year when we did E-maths, we learned this property called the perpendicular bisector of chord. Okay? This property, what does it tell us? It tells us that if I have a circle and I have a chord, the perpendicular bisector of the chord itself will always, okay, pass through the center itself. Okay, because it is actually usually, when we see in E-maths, we usually see it as a radius. Okay, so this is an important property to tell us that as long as we have any chord, okay, any line that passes through 2 points in the circle itself, okay, and I have the perpendicular bisector, it must pass through the center. That's the reason why I'm so confident in locating the center to be on the perpendicular bisector. Okay, so now that we understand that, alright, then knowing that C is actually on this line 5x plus y equals to 0 as well, we are actually looking at the intersection point of the two lines. You understand? Okay, so if you didn't know this concept, you wouldn't have realized that C is the intersection point of the two lines. Okay, so this is a background concept that you need to be familiar with. And very often we are using a lot of this concept itself. Okay? Yes, Joseph? Yeah. Okay, so now let's begin to solve it. Okay, so we are looking at solving 5x plus y equals to 0, as well as y equals to 2x plus 7. Okay, so solve simultaneously and we get x negative 1, y equals to 5. So write the coordinates as per what the question wants. Any questions? Alright, let's look at part 3 where we want to find the equation of the circle in general form. Okay, general form is the expanded form, right? But nonetheless, we always go for standard form, then we expand. Okay, so we need to know the center coordinates, which we already found it. And we also need to know the radius. Okay, so how do we determine the radius? What do you think, Amanda? How can I know what is the length of the radius? We have coordinates of C, we have coordinates of A and B as well. length of A and B. Why you want to find the length of AB then? How does the length of AB help you in finding radius? Is AB a diameter? No, right? Okay. We have coordinates of C, right? We have coordinates of A, correct? What is AC? Sorry? Radius. Can we find the length of AC? Can, right? Okay, so we can find the length of AC, or you can also find the length of BC. Up to you. That will actually be the radius. So radius will be your C and then A C2 plus 1 squared. Minus 1. Okay, and that will give you the radius to be 5. Okay, so the equation of circle will be as such in standard form, but we need it in the general form. Usually, if they ask for equation of circle, it is fine if you leave it in standard form already, just that you need to simplify the 5 square into 25. Okay, only in this question they ask specifically for a general form. Okay, so if they are very specific about it, asking for a general form or a particular form, then you got to leave it according to what the question wants. Okay, so this case, we expand it. So in general form, it is always equals to 0 on the right hand side. And we get this. Yep. Sorry? Oh, plus. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Okay. Next we look at try 5. Given the equation in general form, question wants you to find the center coordinates as well as the radius. Could you do that now? Okay, I think you can find, right, the center and the radius. Give you about 4 minutes. we done? Shami, what do you get for your answer? Radius is, and center is -3.2, right? Notice that maybe some of you don't write very clear presentation, okay? So please present it clearly. If you can memorize the whole thing already and you can skip through the explanation, right? Then you can do that. Okay, so I skipped the whole expansion part, I just expand and rearrange. Right? So then by comparison with the given equation, okay, because the given equation is equals to 12, what you could do is to shift it over to the left and you get -12. So center -3.2 and radius is 5 units. Okay, let's take a look at part 2. Alright. Question says that the lowest point on the circle is B. Find the coordinates of B itself. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? How do you imagine this circle to be like? I mean, if you can't understand the question, we can draw one circle. Center, we now know that it is at -3.2. Where is the lowest point going to be? Where do you think it will be? Right below the center, right? Okay, so it will have to be right below the center. So vertically downwards. So what can we then understand about the coordinates then? Same x coordinate, so it will be -3. What about the y coordinate then? 2 minus? Why do you do 2 minus 5? Because the radius is 5. So we understand that the radius is 5, meaning to say that it's 5 units over here. So since the y coordinate is 2, if you need the coordinate system in place, it will look something like -3.2. Let's say something like that. We need the axis. Okay, look something like this. X coordinate here is -3, y coordinate here is 2. So 2 units, 5 units downwards. Okay, so 2 minus 5 and we will get -3. Okay, so you don't need to go through many steps, you just need to be able to deduce in this case. So lowest point B is at -3, -3, or rather 2 minus 5. Understand? Any questions? Okay, let's look at part 3. It says that there's another circle C2. So the circle that we have drawn here is C1. The name of it is C1. Okay. The circle C2 touches C1 at the point B. Given that C1 and C2 do not overlap, and then there is this detail about the area of C2 being 9 times the area of C1. find the equation of C2 in the general form, and then we need to state what is F, G, and C. Okay, so it is a lengthy paragraph over there. You may want to break it down and illustrate it into an image itself. Okay, so if I were to continue from this diagram here, so this one is B. Okay, so there is a circle C2. C2 is actually 9 times the area of C1, so we expect it to be bigger. Furthermore, earlier in the question, it says that they touch each other at point B, and then they do not overlap. So that means they only meet at that one point. Okay, my drawing may not be very accurate, but I hope you understand what I mean. Okay, just meet at that one point B only. Okay, and this is the circle C2. Alright, what we need to know is, in order to find out what is the equation of this circle, we must definitely know what is the center coordinates as well as the radius itself. Okay, so how are we going to find out what is the center, and how are we going to find out what is the radius? Okay, regarding the center, because they are actually directly downwards below one another, why is it that they have to be below one another? Because they meet at point B. Okay, if they meet at somewhere else, then they will be diagonally, in some way diagonally to each other. So because it is meeting at point B, the center of C2 will be vertically below the center of C1 as well. So they will all share the same x coordinate. But you wouldn't know what is the y coordinate because you do not know what is the radius of this second circle. Understand? Okay, so the challenge now is to find out what is the radius. Okay, how to determine the radius? We need to make use of this information about the area. Okay, because otherwise, this information here has got to be used, right? Otherwise, no point. Okay, it is not just about telling us which one is bigger or smaller. Okay, they specifically tell us it's 9 times bigger. So let's work with that information now. Okay, so the statement says area of C2 is, okay, so equal sign, 9 times area of C1. Right? We can let radius of C2 be, just now we have used R already, so let's maybe use P. Okay, so that means the radius here is P units. Area of a circle, pi r squared, so in this case will be pi p squared for area of C2. For area of C1, okay, the radius we knew that it is 5 units. So area will be pi 5 squared. Okay. Simplify this equation and you would get 225 pi on the right, p squared pi on the left. Can divide by pi. So p is 15 or negative 15, but we reject the negative 1 since p is referring to a radius. Okay, and now that we have got the radius, we can determine the y coordinate of the C2. Y coordinate of the center of C2. And what would that be? How do we know the coordinates of the center of C2? given is? Negative? Negative 15. How do you get negative 15? You think this one is negative 15? It's 15. Yeah, the radius is 15, yes. From the top, from this one or from here? Up to you, actually both are fine. Just depending how you do calculation. Negative 15 ah? Oh, okay, negative 15 minus 3. Okay, so technically it's from here, negative 3, then you minus 15 downwards ah. Okay, so negative 3 minus 15. Okay, negative 3 because you start from B. If you had start from C1, okay, the center from C1, it would be 2 minus away 3 minus away 15. You understand that? Okay, so the center will be at negative 3, negative 18. So now that we got the center and we got the radius already, the equation of C2 plus x minus plus 3 y plus 18. Okay, but the question wants it in a general form, so you got to expand it. So we have x squared plus y squared plus 6x plus 36y plus 108 equals to 0. But question wants you to state what is f, g, and c. So compare. Let me just write it here. So 2g is equals to 6. 2f equals to 36. C equals to 108. Okay. Any questions? Okay, if no questions, I'll end here for today. Alright.